I'm glad to see so many of you here. This is the Properties Committee meeting. We do have a quorum, and all your little smiling faces look so eager to get started, so that's what we're going to do. If you are able, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I will read to you the revised meeting procedure statement. You'll be happy to know it's 4 paragraphs shorter than the first version. Governing Board and its committee conduct all of their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate. Consistent with Bylaw 3.07, procedures for owner-member meetings, and standing rules numbers 2 and number 3. This is the new document adopted by the Governing Board January 23rd. With that, we'll move right to 2.01, the minutes from the January 2nd, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any changes or additions they'd like? Seeing none, it'll be filed as printed. That moves us to 3.01. Carl, are you ready?
I am ready. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here this morning. Properties Committee Facilities Maintenance and Capital Projects Report, February 6th. For capital projects, Palm Ridge Pickleball Facility Monitor Booth. The project is in progress. The underground electrical and concrete pad are complete. And even though my report here says we're waiting on the booth actually delivered yesterday afternoon very successfully. And it's a really well-built, beautiful booth. So it fits on the pad perfectly, and this next week we'll be energizing it. Moving on, the Model Railroad Club received an ADA walkway ramp modification to the typical walkway, concrete walkways in front of their entry. That is complete, along with an ADA handrail going up into their railroad park. That was completed on 1/27. And then we were experiencing a lot of complaints over at Kuntz for this sound system between pool, lobby, fitness rooms, and so we did a sound system equipment repairs. We had some bad speakers that were replaced, did some repairs to wiring to create zones. The original building was built on just one zone, one amplifier, one volume basically with a couple dials, and those dials were not working to our community's delight. So now we have an amplifier with 4 zones, turn the volume up or down to everybody's liking in each area, and that is complete. So, and that's the work for January.
Anyone have any questions for Carl? Anyone in the audience want to talk to Carl? Uh-oh.
Bring it in.
Ann Becknell, 118578. If this is something that you could do at Kuntz, is it also something you could do at Beardsley? Because for a long time, well, for a decade, we've been trying to do something about the sound system there to improve the quality of sound. So I'm just curious, is there something you could do like that there?
Beardsley was done 2 years ago believe it or not. So same package, virtually the same package and the same process. What we're plagued at Beardsley is the large natatorium, the indoor pool area that the acoustics in there are they're just terrible. It's a concrete vault, and there is no improvement that I can perform unless we go to a high dollar sound abatement program. And remember that it's an indoor pool, so fabrics don't work. They get moldy, but I did have an engineer come a few years ago, and I do have that information if you know, the interest of properties or the governing board want to consider staff to go to a higher level in the future, but there's nothing more that I can do.
Aw.
Sorry.
No other questions? Good morning, Russ.
Good morning. So strap in, I got a real long list today, as you can see. Beardsley, we finally selected a color combination, and we are currently in the process of painting the exterior of both buildings at Beardsley. Other than work orders, that's all I have.
Is that being done by a contractor?
That is being done in-house by our people.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Russ? Audience questions for Russ? Moving right along. 401, the proposed fiscal year 25-26. Update from Carl and Todd.
Thank you, Russ. Good morning, everybody. The proposed FY2025-26, everybody received my over $50,000 presentation last month. I do have a few changes to make mention of this month, and then just lightly go over that presentation again for the purpose of the February meetings. We've already done this presentation to BNF this week, charter clubs, and then last evening to Sports Pavilion Committee. I'll start off that there are two changes that have happened between January and February, and of removals or defers, and one addition. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in the overall budget dollar discussion. But softball electronic scoreboard has been removed for $70K, so we have reduced the budget by $70,000. That scoreboard is currently being ordered. In fact, the accounting is cutting the check tomorrow to the vendor, and we expect the scoreboard installation to happen somewhere in late April. The other deletion is Russ and accounting talked further about Palm Ridge pool circulation pumps for $14,135, so that has also been deferred to a future year. And not pertinent to this committee, but the only addition to our budget to date is the vendor for AEDs in our community. They put out a notice that it's not implied 10-year operational use. It is a 10-year operational use. So of our 50-some units, 42 of them need to be replaced because we're older than 10 years. So it's a significant cost. It's in the $60,000 range, but we know that for life safety that needs to be added and is considered R&R, repair and replacement item. Moving on, in our new capital area, no changes. We still have the pool area interior. We have the clay club and glass enameling, room expansion, architectural documents and fees. The Charter Clubs Committee and folks from each other committee have been to the Charter Clubs operational session where they're just having further discussions with the four clubs that are potentially impacted. You know, the two clubs that are asking for expansion, which is clay and glass enameling, and if there was any opportunities for photography and the Computers West Club to work together on consolidating them together. We had a really good meeting. We came to no conclusions. There is another meeting getting ready to be scheduled soon, just to keep this conversation going on, to find out how, if a club has an opportunity to make this happen through consolidation, room rearrangement, or if this needs to be planned out through strategic planning and future long-term planning. So more to come on that. So again, I'm only asking for documents, fees for documents of architectural if needed. And then lastly, the mini golf shade cantilevers, no change there, $50K. Moving over to lawn bowling, or the blue R&R capital section, no changes other than the ones that I mentioned about scoreboard and Russ and his Palm Ridge pool pumps. So, and then no evident changes in the R&R for Todd in golf or landscape maintenance. So that's our color block portion of the presentation. I'll move into just reviewing the actual PowerPoint presentation. Russ, if you can go to slide 3, perfect, thank you. For all of your information, if you want to see the entire budget in its entirety, you have 2 opportunities, and that's the Budget and Finance meeting, both January and February, which are recorded on YouTube, or the upcoming conversations at the Governing Board Workshop, and that would show the budget in its entirety. We go over the things relevant to Properties Committee. So the overall budget, new capital in its entirety is $190,000 worth of new capital. Repair and replacement for the recreation divisions of the rec centers is $2,052,377. Repair and replacement for golf and landscaping items, $2,714,776. Todd is going to speak a little bit more on that, and then allowances at $520,000 for an overall fiscal 25-26 budget, $5,477,153. I put a note in here based on the comments from chartered clubs, from Budget and Finance, just requesting when we develop these budgets each year, are there items that don't make it to the budget and why? So those items, that does happen every year where we do an evaluation of the assets that meet useful life. And there are a handful each year that get deferred. An example, again, I've mentioned this before, is like this room carpet. This has been deferred a couple times, and we still think it's in really good condition. In fact, we're going to talk about in a little more detail one of the items today during this presentation. For FY25-26, we actually had $1,137,000 worth of deferred items, and that could be equipment, that could be actual like carpet project, other items that have met their useful life, but when we go and evaluate them, they are still good working order. Moving on to new, the Palm Ridge pool interior, $75K. Again, requires a licensed general contractor with scaffolding and subcontractors for painting. No changes there. Beardsley mini golf shade cantilevers, $50,000. Approximately 4 shade cantilevers. Partnered with landscape maintenance on planting additional trees in the areas that trees were removed, and we wouldn't be placing shade canopies. That concludes new items. Moving on to the recreational department's R&R. This first one is the R.H. Johnston Tennis Courts windscreens, courts 1 through 16. Over the last 2 weeks, I've received a few emails from the tennis club. And based off the very first email that I received, I did some additional research on this because the club is asking for us to consider deferring this project based on their view of the conditions of the windscreens. Russ and I did a thorough walk on this project in the beginning of the year, and we evaluated the windscreens as fair. I mean, they are 7.5 years old. They are slightly dusty and some are slightly more sun faded than the other based on the position that they hit in the daily sun. But again, we gave it a fair evaluation and we didn't defer it primarily because the last decision on deferring servicing of the courts, met with some debate. So, and we had to kind of rush to get that back on track. So, Russ and I chose not to defer this project. Now, the club, again, is asking for it to be deferred. General manager and I have discussed it, and the general manager, I, and accounting are happy to push this off for a couple of years. So if there's any comments at the end of this presentation, happy to take those, okay? So the other point to this is the club mentioned that there was some areas that they felt like we replicated when we renovated the courts 7 years ago, and we did like-for-like screens as far as where they were before and where they are today. They feel like they don't need screens in certain locations. So my other vendor that I went out and had a discussion with this, if we were to keep it for this year or defer it, the price is reduced to $55,000, not $75,000. So whatever our decision is, it's being proposed at $55,000 today, and if we determine to defer it, we'll take it out of the budget in March. Moving on, we have the Coons Fitness Center cardio equipment, 208-319. Again, this replaces 20 pieces of cardio equipment. Offers us the funds for doing some information technology improvements to support that equipment and some room decor improvements from what it is today, just the white walls. And that concludes my section for repair and replacement. Todd will speak on landscaping, our landscape items.
Hi, good morning. Russ, do you have that slide? There it is. Good. I presented this proposed project in your January meeting, but I've given a little bit more detail to the project. So we are looking at regrassing two of the lawn bowl greens over at Johnson, greens 1 and 2. They are the original greens, so they're approximately about 45 years old, so they're getting past their useful life. In this project, we would remove the existing turf along with about 6 to 8 inches of root zone mix, and then regrass them with one of the newer varieties of Bermuda grass like Tiff Eagle. And I'd like to note that material, we would haul that over to the landscape area and stockpile that and then reuse that material for the shoreline projects proposed at Deer Valley and Desert Trails in 2026. And we'd use that for backfill. So that's going to save a little bit of money on that project when we get to that. So the cost of the project is $337,459, or if you break that out per grain, that's $168,729.50. And our proposed start date would be April of 2026. So we'd like to get that approved in the upcoming budget, and then we could start that early, and then that would allow us to have that time to grow those in from April or late April all the way through September. And so as you can see in the picture over there, or in the bottom there, the U.S. Open, we did host the U.S. Open last year, and it sounds like we would be able to do that again in future years. So, and this is really good exposure to Sun City West. People come from all over the country and world, and they get to see what we have to offer here, not only lawn bowl, but everything else in the community. So again, it's really good exposure for Sun City West to host those tournaments. And so having good playable greens is an important part of that tournament. So, and I think that's it. I just wanted to update you on that one project. So.
While you're there, does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask of him?
I'd like to know how many greens do we actually have?
We have 4 greens over there, yes. So the plan would be to do 2 greens, and then that allows the other 2 to be used during the summer months for our club members, and then the following year we'd like to do the other 2. So it's important that we do all 4 greens just for the consistency part of the whole project.
I have a question. That's okay. In doing this in April, does that interfere with any of the tournaments that they have scheduled, or how does that work with
No,
their
usually
schedule?
their club events are usually winding down at that time, and there's still 2 greens available, so they could still play. If they did have some in-house event or tournament at that time, they would have the 2 greens that they could use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's just one of the newer varieties that's out on the market right now. Tiff Eagle, they have some Ultra Dwarfs, they have Mini Verde. So there's about 4 or 5 different brands or varieties of Bermuda grass that are available right now. So who knows, by the time we get to the actual project in 2026, there may be a whole new grass out there. And so it's a much better playing surface than what we have right now currently over there, which is 328 Tiff. Which is really a pretty good surface, but some of these new ones are really outstanding, and they're real smooth. They're consistent, and the speed. That's an important part of lawn bowl is smoothness and speed, and this new turf does offer all that. You're welcome.
I just have a question. Is the spreadsheet available online so I could go in and print it?
This?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's part of your packet, I believe.
Yes, but is it
Or
available
it's in
on
board docs. It
Yeah,
is
on
in
board docs?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions for Todd? To our audience.
Excuse me, Nick Turner, 131-829. You all know me from a variety of different places. Today I'm president of the lawn bowling. And I'd just like to add to what Todd has said. We have a world-class bowling facility here. And this is largely due to the work of Todd and his team, especially in maintaining these greens, which are very old. We currently, this season, which runs from November through to about the end of March, we will be hosting 8 regional or national tournaments by the end of the season. There's a regional open tournament going on yesterday and today, so there's 60 visitors there today. I was out there yesterday talking with them, and they're from all over North America, although it's an open tournament. Mainly, you know, the majority of the competitors are here from Sun City West, Sun City or Grand. But you'll see people there with shirts with Saskatchewan on it, Nova Scotia, and things like that. There are Canadians here, they're probably snowbirds, but they're playing in our tournament. And one of the comments I get regularly is that there is nowhere else in the United States like this. People don't know of another bowling facility in the United States that's got 4 greens. I know of one in Canada, but I don't know of any here in the United States. And that's important because of the climate we have here. We need to rest our greens, so the daily play rotates around the greens and it rotates in the different direction. But today, because there's a tournament, 3 of those greens will be in use, and one of them won't, and that's number 1. Because number 1 is one of those which needs to be regrassing, and that's the one that suffers most. And at the moment, we're currently thinking of, like, when it gets to the summer and the tournaments are over and we don't actually need 4 greens, we may not use number 1 at all until next September, to give it time to recover for when the tournaments start again in the fall. The amount of play actually over there is quite a lot. I worked out that given the tournaments we have, the daily draws we have, the number of fun days we have, and so on, like there's a Super Bowl fun day on Saturday, come and bowl in your favorite team shirt, and skills training days, socials and so on, that between November and March, we actually have 240 play days, if you like, which averages about 2 a day of something going on there, daily draw, women's draw, competitions and so on. So there is, in fact, a lot of use of those greens. And as Todd says, they're now coming to end of life. There's not a lot, you know, Todd's team worked absolute miracles to keep those greens in good condition, but there's limits to how far they can go and what they can do. Pueblo El Mirage came for a reciprocal visit the other day, and several of their members asked if they could join our club. because they have one green that gets way more use than our greens do. They're in the same area, same climate, and their green is nowhere near as good a condition as we do. They have to play on it. They can't give it a rest like we do with our greens. So basically, in summary, the greens are busy. It's an active club. This is a once every 40 years cost, and the money is in the reserve fund. It's not as if we have to find anything. We've been saving for it over the years. It's a world-class facility. As I said, I'm told there's nowhere else like this in North America. And the Bowls USA have in fact asked us to host again this coming fall. The club has still got to decide whether they want that to happen, and if they do, we'll work with the rec centres and Todd to do that. But Bowls USA want to come back. So thank you.
Any other questions for Todd, or any comments on the stuff that we just heard from Nick? Suzanne?
Todd, I know the plinth boards were replaced a number of years ago. Are they still in good condition, or is there additional infrastructure that needs to be done when you do the grass?
Yeah, once we tear those out, of course, that's what supports the greens, the plinths. And so they are kind of out of sight right now. So once we do the project and we expose those plinths, we can see what the condition is. And so if they need to replace, there is money in that dollar amount to do that. But you're right, we did that about 10 years ago, and it's just treated lumber that we put in there. And so time will tell once we expose those, and we'll make that decision whether we want to replace them. I would say we probably will replace them. Once you have, like anything, once you have them dug up and everything, you want to go ahead and replace that. You don't want to have to come back at a later time and have to redo that. So once you have them torn up, I think it's probably best to go ahead and replace them at that time.
Is that built into this number that we have?
Yes, it is, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to thank Nick Turner for the additional information he's provided to us. Your presentation prompted a question in my mind. So, how many members are in that club?
201 on December 31st, and we're up to about 224, 225 at the moment. We have new classes for, new bowlers and new members, and we've had to augment our coaching and training staff because we've got so many people coming in at the moment that they can't cope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Todd, have you ever thought about or researched artificial turf?
Yes, we have. And in fact, just a couple of years ago, we were looking at that. In fact, we went over to Sun City Grand, or the Grand, because they do have artificial turf over there, and we wanted to look at that. It's very expensive, and I don't know if Nick would want to talk about the playability of the turf and some of the dislikes that some of the bowlers have with that. From what I'm hearing, they would prefer to bowl on real grass and not the artificial.
Yeah, people do want to prefer to bowl on grass than artificial. If you have to swap between one and the other, it's very, very difficult to adjust. The speed of the bowls and how far they turn is completely different on artificial turf. I have played over at the Grand, and it is a bit of an adjustment. In fact, we've got a visit over there next week, and 2 of our members have said they are not going because they just don't like to play on the artificial turf. And the other issue as well, it would have to be all or nothing. If we change to artificial turf, we'd have to do all 4 at the same time.
And I'll interject on that point. We did do that research, and the cost difference at today's pricing and discussions was $400,000 per court for just the artificial turf, and not the effects of the logistics that create damage to the concrete. So we're talking a multi-million-dollar project if that was the choice that was made. And remember that anytime you go to artificial sources, there are benefits sometimes, but You do have a life expectancy then, and that life expectancy is approximately 12 years. So imagine that having to be not fully redeveloped, but the turf itself, the artificial, being replaced approximately every 12 years, so.
Yeah, just one more thing I'd like to add to what Carl said. The life expectancy of this turf, like the Tef Eagle or some of the ultra turfs, we're going to get another 40 years, just like what we're getting out of our 328 right now. So again, if you're only getting 12 years out of the artificial, that's a lot of money going out over 40 years. So. Okay, you're welcome.
Now we'll go back to Carl. Did you want to mention any other issues?
I think I touched on the tennis court windscreens.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that I needed to mention, or?
No, I didn't know if you had anything else.
I don't, no.
Okay. So I think what we're hearing is we would like to give direction to the governing board as to whether or not to delay that project for 2 years for the tennis courts. Any discussion in this group on how you feel about that?
I think there's 1 or 2 screens that need a little work on, but the rest of them look pretty good. And after the rain, the courts and the screens clean. Once we got a little rain, it made a world of difference as far as the appearance, So they look almost new now again, So I think we could probably wait. But that's just an opinion.
The only problem with waiting is the price of it will probably go up. Probably won't cost what it does now in a year or 2.
My thoughts are, given the expertise that is on staff, we should defer to that expertise as a default. So
Okay.
I'm in favor of delay. Okay, I motion that we, as a committee, come to consensus in favor of deferring the windscreen job at the tennis courts at Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we're just going to take a roll call just so everybody will have a chance to speak. Start down at the better.
I agree, defer.
Do we have to go 2 years or can we go 1 year?
2 years seems to be the recommendation that staff seems to.
Tennis seems to. We can defer 1 year, 2 year.
It's either one, but we would
I would
like
say
2 years. So.
I would say defer 1 year myself.
Okay, then we're not agreeing to defer it 2 years.
Right.
Okay.
1 year.
Well, we have a majority for the 2 years, so we would recommend to the governing board that recommendation coming from this committee. Thank you. Do you have anything else?
I think we're good, thank you.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Well, moving right along, that gets us down to 5.01, which is comments from the committee. So we'll start with Suzanne this time. Now's your moment.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to take advantage of it. This weekend is the ARC car show out in the parking lot. We encompass the whole front part of the parking lot. First of all, I apologize if there's going to be inconvenience to people, but the draw from the community and all of Phoenix is amazing. We will have approximately 450 unique cars out there, classics, antiques, you name it. Come out and see it because it's going to be a beautiful thing. And we're expecting wonderful weather too. No rain this year. And finally, we have something very, very important that we're going to be doing at the end of the car show. Just before we give out the trophies, we have a raffle car that we're raffling off. And I just happen to have some raffle tickets with me today. But if you're not able to see me, go down to ARC and get your raffle ticket, because that car will go to some lucky winner. Or they might choose the $10,000 cash if they don't want the car. And we do have a second and third place winners too. Second place gets $500, third place gets $200. So your odds of winning are pretty good, folks. There's only 5,000 tickets that are being printed, and not all of those have been sold. So go for it.
I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
No comment.
Okay, we are down to that moment you all look forward to, when any guests in the audience can come up and ask any question or make any suggestion they would like. So this is your moment. If you'd like to speak, please go over to the microphone, indicate your name and your rec center number. Okay. You stole my thunder. She stole your thunder? Okay. That's a privilege of being on the board, the committee. If there is nothing else, I declare this meeting adjourned. Our next meeting is March 6th. Thank you for coming.